Hey, everyone. Hey, Erica.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It feels like so much has happened since our last webinar.
I know. So much has happened.
Yeah,
It's been a whirlwind, right?
it has. How is everything at NDNU?
It's going good. We're hanging in there.
Mhm.
Still slow and steady. So, hi,
Yeah.
Joy. How are you?
Hey, Joy.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. And you all have next week off or just Thursday, Friday?
Staff has a week off, but students have
Okay.
classes, up until the day.
Gotcha.
Lucky them.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are things going for you?
Good. I'm actually headed down to LA tomorrow just to check in on my apartment there, make sure it's not burnt down. And then I'll be back up here for the Thanksgiving holidays. So it's actually raining today. I'm not sure if it is over where you are.
No, it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday it was raining.
Otherwise, things are going well. Just waiting
Good.
until I can travel again.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you'll have a quick LA trip.
Yeah,
Just
just
go
a
and
couple of
turn
days.
around.
Yeah.
How's your brother? How's Rohan?
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he actually put in his notice at LinkedIn kind of in advance in February. He's going to leave. He wants to work on his own thing, and so I'm kind of helping him figure that out. But exciting times for him as well.
Oh, lots of changes. Hey,
Yeah.
Eric.
Hey,
Hello,
Eric.
good morning or good afternoon, I guess. No, it's the morning, huh?
Still morning, almost.
Still morning.
I logged in with the wrong Zoom account. I have 3 Zoom accounts, and so it's really bad. Like I have the department Zoom account, I have my work Zoom account, and then I have my personal Zoom account. So,
I have the same issue. I feel like that's something that Zoom should solve because I'm sure people now have both a work and personal Zoom. Maybe not 3, Eric.
such is life.
Hey, Laura.
Hi.
All right, we can wait our usual 2 or 3 minutes more, and then I'll turn it over to you, Eric and Erica, if you have any announcements that you'd like to do at the top. By the way, for everyone joining, we are recording this call, and this will be made available to NDNU after the fact, and you can access it through their website. So those details will be made available.
Hey, Ro. I don't know if she can hear me.
All right, Eric and Erica, do we want to go ahead and get started?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone who's attended. We do have a couple events coming up pretty soon. Tonight we have a virtual game night at 7 o'clock. Check the newsletter for details for that. On December 3rd, working with the STARS program to do a workshop. Erica, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we are having a financial workshop party, similar to the last Lunch and Learn that we did, was it earlier this month or maybe last month? I can't keep track of time. It just flies by so fast. So yeah, we're having another financial literacy workshop where we're actually going to go through the course with students and hopefully help you all complete the workshop so that you can be entered into our raffle. So that's coming up December 3rd, and it's been announced on the student newsletter. Please make sure to check the student newsletter for those things, and Zoom info to be announced.
And one last thing, Sahil posted the course access in the chat. So if you have not yet finished or even started any of the modules in the program, we will be raffling off Apple AirPods early March if you complete all of your modules by then. So you've got Thanksgiving break coming up, you got winter break coming up. Use that time to get ahead. But just be on the lookout for that. We will be contacting students as soon as they finish.
And shout out to the raffle, the Thanksgiving raffle, Eric.
Oh, go ahead, Laura. You want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah, we're just doing, it's a very small, requires very small participation effort, but it's just a words of gratitude raffle. You click on the link, it's a Google form. It's 140 characters, so it's like a tweet, just to express your gratitude. The idea is that by collecting all of our sort of shared gratitude and, getting them together and we'll send them out, we'll display them in some sort of way that we can sort of grow that feeling. And actually research says that a sense of gratitude helps in your, as a positive emotion, helps in your goal achievement. So this is like pertinent to everyone's areas, especially jobs being a major goal in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to turn it over now to Sahil.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So for those of you who haven't attended one of these, welcome. If you've attended some of our previous webinars, welcome back. So essentially the way that these go are every month, we kind of teach one new career concept that is very integral to your success recruiting for a job or internship. This is applicable to anyone, if you're a freshman, senior, graduate student, or even alumni at this point. And what we do is we cover a series of topics every month, and those topics are actually similar to the ones that you would find in the Career Launchpad course. And I'll talk a little bit about the course towards the end of my presentation today, but you'll see a lot of the similar content because the concepts are the same. This is just a forum for you to learn about it with your peers, ask me specific questions that you have towards the end of the presentation. We'll have a Q&A and really kind of clarify any kind of questions that you have. As Eric mentioned, I have linked out course access in the chat for those of you who haven't yet visited. And I've also linked out a Facebook group that we have for you to share your progress, ask questions. I host regular Q&A calls on that group as well to kind of ongoing support as you need it for your recruiting journey. And again, this is all thanks to NDNU for making this available to students. So with that, let me go ahead and start the presentation. I'm going to be sharing from my screen here. Cool. All right. Let me pin myself. Okay, and Eric and Erica, if we ever get any chat from people, if you guys can please let me know if that happens, I can pause and answer the question. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about a couple of things. Do a brief introduction of myself. If you've heard it already, apologies. It'll be really quick, and then we're going to get into the presentation and then wrap up with a summary about the Career Launchpad. So today's goal is quite simple. It's to understand why you should care about networking and why most students and recent graduates actually get it completely wrong. And then to show you how to actually network effectively as a student. So we're going to give you all the tactics and the templates that you can use to reach out to professionals and why it's so important for you to do so. So quick background, my brother who couldn't be here today, but he is a very integral part of the Launchpad program, and you'll see him if you take the course. He is a product manager at LinkedIn, and he went to Berkeley undergrad, had a number of amazing experiences while he was there interning, and then joined LinkedIn after he graduated. And myself, I went to UCLA. I worked in management consulting for a couple of years, then went to Discovery Channel, and now I work at Netflix as part of our marketing strategy team. So between us two, we've had a lot of fun experiences just looking for jobs in very pressure cooker type environments, right? Competing with Ivy League students, but then also both Rohan and I, during our day job, or during our nights and weekends rather, we love coaching students and helping them out with their careers. So between us two, we have over 12 years of experience helping college students, undergrad and graduate students with their careers and really making that first jump. So that's where all this advice is coming from. Quick background about me. I was a marching band nerd growing up. On the left-hand side, you'll see that picture. I played the alto saxophone. Music was a big part of my life. I applied to UCLA in high school, didn't get in because I didn't have the grades. But a couple of weeks later, rather, I got a clip of YouTube, of me playing saxophone on YouTube, and the music director at UCLA gave me a call and said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you come into the school through the back door? We'll find a way for you to make it work." And I got into my dream school kind of on a whim. And that was both a blessing and a curse. If you guys can think back to maybe your first day at NDNU, being surrounded by so many students, it can be intimidating, right? Especially for me when I knew I wasn't supposed to be there academically. So kind of dealing with imposter syndrome, how do you overcome that? And really kind of what changed for me is instead of thinking about it as me versus everyone else, I really thought of it as like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here on campus technically, but I'm surrounded by 35,000 other students who are better than me in some way. So why don't I try to learn from them over the next 4 years? And that transformation, that mindset shift really, really changed the way that I enjoyed college. And I started participating more in student groups, started taking my extracurriculars way more seriously, not freaking out so much about my grades, and ultimately was able to get my first job out of college at a company called LEK Consulting, which is a consulting firm. And you can see on the right-hand side, during the time that I interviewed for that company, during that same year, it was actually listed on Glassdoor's top 25 most difficult companies to interview with. So the only reason why I say that is because all the things that I learned that we're going to share with you today have been battle tested in some of the most pressure cooker environments, the most competitive environments. So needless to say, they're going to work for you as well. And I had this fun email when I joined my internship before that full-time offer at LEK, and just kind of a moment of reflection when I looked at some of the other students who were included as part of this group, some great colleges from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, University of Chicago, so on and so forth. So really a cool moment of reflection that anyone can do this, whether you're a first generation student like I am, or someone who doesn't have the socioeconomic resources to be able to, pay for a fancy degree or whatever. These techniques will work for you no matter what, and no matter what field you want to enter. So that's kind of why Rohan and I are so passionate about sharing this with as many students as we can. So basically, we figured out stuff the hard way, so you don't have to. All right, let's get into the presentation now. So here's what we're going to cover today. Part one, how to create a networking strategy. So a couple of things here. A, why you should care in the first place. B, why most students and recent graduates misunderstand it. And C, how to network effectively as a student. And then part two, we're going to get into the tactics of how to get the attention of working professionals. So this thing called cold emailing, why it's so critical. I know when I just say cold emailing, some of you might be like, I don't really want to do that. And we're going to show you how to kind of face that fear. We're going to give you best practices and tips to write high quality cold emails and how to outreach to people, and then identifying professionals to actually network with. So with that, let's talk about part one first, how to create a networking strategy. Okay, so let's first acknowledge, and some of you might remember this slide from our previous webinars, that the recruiting process is completely broken today, especially for college students. Here's a couple of statistics from Glassdoor, I believe. On average, any job posting you see online, specifically for college students, on average, they get 250 applications. From there, around 4 to 6 students get an interview. And then from that, obviously, only one student gets the offer. That's a 0.4% offer rate. right? That's pretty terrible. And so I think the big idea here is if you're relying on just uploading your resume to a job portal and hoping you'll hear back, those days are kind of gone. I think the advent of the internet kind of ruined that way of applying to jobs. And really, you need to have an insider, someone at the company, maybe someone from NDNU reaching out to a recruiter on your behalf, some kind of network on the inside of that company to get your application noticed. Otherwise, you're kind of battling the stack of 250 other people that want that same job. So it just kind of reframing how recruiting has really changed, but no one, especially in the college market, is really talking about it. And I think that's mainly why NDNU wanted to make this program so widely available, is because things are changing so fast, especially with COVID, that I think it's really important to hammer this point home, that the old way of recruiting, the advice that you hear from maybe your older students or their friends and family, that's really no longer the case. Cool. By the way, we have some background noise. If other people can please mute, that'd be great. Cool. So if you're trying to avoid the old school way of applying to jobs, which of these factors do you think most affect your ability to land a job offer? I'm going to pause here and give everyone a second to think. Okay, so usually I get the typical answers of university prestige, GPA, intelligence, some would argue also race and gender and socioeconomic status. Some of my international student clients would argue country. Sometimes if you're an international student, you get branded as, oh, this person needs a visa, therefore they're less desirable. But actually what we've seen is network is the biggest thing that can affect your ability to land a job offer. It's the biggest lever you can pull, no matter what background you come from, no matter how smart or not you are, no matter what university you come from, everyone has the ability to network. And the reality is not enough students are doing it, which means that for all of you listening to this, both live and after the fact, if you actually take our advice seriously, you're going to be one of the weird students that are actually doing this, and you're going to get outsized benefits. That's kind of the secret that Ron and I love to share with people. So what do I mean by network? Well, as students, you already have access to 4 types of networks. Number one, you have older students, people who are in the same student groups as you are. Maybe they live in the same building as you do, right? You can ask them for advice. You obviously have great professors and faculty at NDNU, and you can go to their professor office hours to ask about their advice for you and your career path. The 2 that we're going to focus on today, you have thirdly, alumni of NDNU. So you can reach out to them via your university's alumni page if you have one, or on LinkedIn, asking for kind of an informational interview, and I'll talk about that later on. And then also you have complete strangers, people on LinkedIn, just people you have no connection with whatsoever. And actually what's cool is while you're students, even if you're recent graduates, but particularly as students, you can reach out to complete strangers and it's totally not awkward, because the thing is you're playing the student card. Hey, I'm a student, I'm at the very beginning of my career. I'm looking for someone to just help me out and chat with me about career advice. It's totally not awkward. It gets a little bit awkward when you're like 50 years old reaching out to another person randomly on LinkedIn just to connect without a reason. So take advantage of the fact that you guys can play the student card right now. All right, so to have a rewarding career, networking is going to be an integral part of your professional life. So just framing the ongoing importance of networking, it allows you to do a couple of things. Become an industry expert for your desired career path and test your career hypothesis with the professional. Now, career hypothesis, what is that? We talked about that in a couple of webinars ago. The online course also talks about this. Basically, a career hypothesis is what you think you want to do with your career. It's your statement, like, I think I want to be a digital marketer in the entertainment space. And you're going to go out and actually talk to people, try an internship or 2, get a full-time job, whatever way you can test that career hypothesis. That's what we mean by that. Number 2, obviously beat the 0.4% offer rate statistic that I shared with you just now by finding out about hidden job opportunities that no one else knows about. And again, hidden opportunities are basically opportunities that are never posted publicly on a job forum. These are opportunities that are kind of within a company. People ask, okay, I need some help on my team. Does anyone know anyone that would be a good fit for the role? And if someone does, then that role actually never got posted publicly because it got filled internally through a referral or through a network. And actually that's how 80% of jobs get filled. And 80% of jobs never make it to public light in a kind of job posting forum. So good thing to know. And then thirdly, preparing for interviews with experienced professionals. So obviously the more chats that you have with professionals in your desired industry, the less awkward you'll feel during the actual interview, because you're like, oh, I've already talked to people like this. I know what I'm talking about. I've done plenty of research. I feel good about this. So a couple of really cool benefits to networking when you do it the right way. So your objective when networking is quite simple. It's to meet and learn from other ambitious, high-achieving professionals that can help you over the long run. Again, over the long run. It's not a short-term transactional thing. And I'll clarify that in a second. So kind of some reframing in your head. Most students get networking wrong because they define networking incorrectly. When I say networking, chances are some of you have this icky feeling inside of you. Like, oh, like I hate like exchanging my resume, asking people for jobs, like dressing up in a suit or whatever, and just like, it's awkward. And I actually looked up two different definitions. So if you look at the definition of networking in the dictionary, you'll see it says on the second bullet point there, interact with other people to exchange information and develop contacts, especially to further one's career. So the traditional definition of networking has a very selfish tone to it, to further one's career. I want you to think of it differently as philanthropy, the desire to promote the welfare of others. Networking becomes a lot more fun when you think about it that way. Now, the next logical question is, okay, great, but I'm a student at NDNU. What could I possibly have to give to others? And the point is, it doesn't matter if it's a lot or a little. It's obviously not a monetary amount. Simply what you can give to others is you're a blank slate person with a lot of potential. And if someone were to invest in you and help you receive your full potential, and you then give them the credit for doing so once you do get that internship or job, that person feels really good about the time that they invested in you. So you can give the feeling of someone being a good mentor. That's something you can give. There's a lot of non-career related things you can give as well. If someone needs help with something related to like a particular hobby, or I don't know, understanding a current event, there's so many cool creative ways. But here's the thing, as a student, the only thing that matters is that you offer someone help. So at the end of an informational interview, whenever you meet someone and you just say, you know, Mark, it was so helpful to hear your career path as a journalist. If there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. I'd be happy to open my contacts, or if you need help with any research project, I'm here for you. And just saying that alone is more than enough. And that's kind of the cool part about, again, being a student, is the real world doesn't expect much from you. So again, think of it more so as philanthropy of trying to meet people, learn from them, and accomplish amazing things and give credit to them. That's one way you can give as a student, rather than thinking, okay, I need to like help someone else with their career when they're 10 years older than me. All right, so let's define true professional networking. It's no different than making friends. Both organic and inorganic relationships should have the same outcome. Networking is most effective when you don't need it. Meaning, for everyone listening to this call, most students think, okay, I graduated, I'm done with NDNU, I need a job, now I need to network. That is probably the worst time to network. The time to network is when, I would argue, you're a freshman at NDNU, you have 4 years ahead of you, and you're like, okay, I have 4 years to explore my career pursuits. I'm gonna start meeting professionals here and there, starting to hear more of their story. I don't need a job right now, I don't need anything, I just wanna learn. And when you network that way, you're coming from a position of strength because you're not needing something right away. You can just meet people for the sake of meeting people, and you don't have that pressure, right? So again, keep that in mind. And this also goes for when you guys are in your 20s and 30s and beyond. Networking is most effective when you don't need it. And then thirdly, networking should be mutually beneficial. As we mentioned before, think of it as the desire to promote the welfare of others. So make sure it's not transactional. The goal of a networking session is not for you to ask for a job after chatting with them for 30 minutes. It's actually a chance for you to build a relationship, learn from them, prove that you're someone worth investing in, and over the long run, having the trust that they'll be able to help you out. And so specifically, I want to talk about informational interviews. Informational interviews, for those of you who haven't heard of the term, it's basically a way for, the easy part is it's having a coffee chat or a phone call with a professional for 30 minutes to learn more about their career path, their industry, and any advice they have for you. That's simply all an informational interview is. I think this differs from a job interview, because a job interview, there's like a job dangling at the end of the interview if you get it or not. An informational interview, the only goal for you is to get information and build relationships. So there's two goals here. Number one, acquire knowledge that you can't readily find online to make yourself more informed. And number two, demonstrate your passion and curiosity for an industry so that the professional you're interviewing wants to help you over the long run. So that's kind of one of the techniques that we talked about in the, I think, second webinar of these series, is doing industry research and how to quickly become an industry expert by doing online research on Google, YouTube, etc., to quickly learn the nuts and bolts about your industry, so that when you do talk to people in informational interviews, you're not asking what Rohan and I call Googleable questions that are very easily found online. Instead, you're asking the other person really insightful, kind of second level questions that get them to think, like Sahil's a student at NDNU. He's like very young and he doesn't know, I mean, he doesn't have any experience, but he seems to know a lot about this career and he's asking really sharp questions. Like, Sahil is someone I want to help. And that's exactly what goes on in the heads of professionals if you do this process correctly. So a couple of principles for effective informational interviewing. Number one, as I mentioned before, do the prep necessary. Sorry, do we have someone?
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to interrupt just really quickly. I'm hearing some background noise, so I just wanted to ask that everyone mutes while Sahil is going through the presentation. It's a little distracting, so if everyone can make sure that they're on mute, please. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, thanks for interrupting. I'll keep an eye out or an ear out for that. 3 principles for effective informational interviewing. Number one, do the prep necessary to have a genuine and engaging conversation. So you should never be reaching out to a professional and then, like, let's say you have a coffee chat scheduled for tomorrow or a phone call scheduled for tomorrow. Don't go in there without doing some kind of online research and prepping at least 3 to 5 questions beforehand of what you want to ask. Number two, put the other person in a position of leverage so that they can impact your career trajectory in just 30 minutes of their time. What this means is, again, kind of similar, don't ask kind of the foundational basic questions. Really prove to them that you're ready for an internship or a job just by the knowledge and the types of questions that you ask, so that that person has a lot of confidence in them being able to impact your career. It's like they found a diamond in the rough just from this random LinkedIn message. And then number 3, obviously, is most important. Close the feedback loop by expressing appreciation for their advice and offer either your career or non-career related help. Again, the key point here, guys, to remember is you don't actually have to help people. Just making the gesture is more than enough because people understand you're a college student. So just making the gesture at the end and expressing your gratitude is enough. And relationships will be mutually beneficial because you provide validation. There's nothing more that professionals love than helping younger people out, especially students who are particularly ambitious, high performing, knowledgeable. Really, no one likes wasting their time giving career advice to a student who is just going to hear it from one ear and have it go out the other. They really want to make sure that they're investing in someone's talent and potential for the long run. And that's actually a great thing to give to other people. So how do you run a successful informational interview? A couple things. Know the basics about the job and the company to have a meaningful conversation. So let's say you're going to reach out to NDNU alumni who are digital marketers in tech. You obviously want to understand, okay, what does it mean to be a digital marketer in tech? Do some online research, right? Prepare some questions to ask. Number 2, be up to date on the industry and major trends. So if there's been any big changes in digital marketing over the past couple of years, note those trends down and ask them about it because chances are they'll have an interesting perspective. Number 3, do research on the professional you're talking to. LinkedIn makes it very easy for you to learn how people's career has shaped up. So kind of you can look up someone on LinkedIn and see, okay, they went to this college, then they started their career here, then they moved here, here, and here. And you can kind of understand, okay, how did this person think about their career? What did they learn throughout that process? Those are the types of questions you can ask other people. And then number 4, what we talked about before is to come up with a list of non-Googleable questions. These are second level questions that build on the research that you've already done online and kind of go to that second level that students typically don't ask. And those are going to be the set of questions that really separate yourself from other people. These are questions around industry trends, things that happen in the industry, recent news, company news, that kind of a thing, rather than like, what's the typical day like as a digital marketer? Those are things you can find out online. And so more tactically, again, we're giving you all the tips here. Here's how to run a successful informational interview chat, the framework that you can follow step by step. So let's say you have a 30-minute call scheduled with an alumni or a random stranger. You're going to spend the first couple of minutes talking about yourself, your quick 1 or 2 minute pitch, then go into 2 to 4 minutes of transitioning the conversation to them, why you wanted to talk to them in the first place, what you found interesting about their profile. Then the next about 10 minutes asking about their work and experience at the company. So what interesting problems they're trying to solve, What is the company looking most forward to tackling in 2021? How maybe COVID has affected their company. That's a great topic to ask about as well. Then the next 10 minutes, you're going to engage in an intellectual conversation. Now, what this means is you're going to be talking about the trends and the research that you found online and trying to validate it with the other person. So it's like, oh, I read, so-and-so trend about digital marketing online. That seems to be a very popular topic. What are your thoughts on that? Or have you actually applied this at your company? So you're asking about things that students don't normally talk about, right? I mean, students, when they talk to professionals, they're like, are you guys hiring? Do you guys have an internship? I'm like a chem major. Like that's the extent of the conversation. So by doing a lot of research beforehand, you'll appear as a colleague, because these are things that they're talking about at lunch when they're back at the office with their other colleagues. So you're gonna appear very impressive to them. Then the last 5 minutes, you're gonna ask for actionable advice for yourself. So it's like, okay, we had this conversation. If you're in my shoes, I'm a sophomore at NDNU. I really want to get into digital marketing. What do you think I should look to do over the next couple of months and years ahead to be in your shoes someday? So ask for really actionable advice. And then the last minute you want to spend just thanking them and offering your help, as I mentioned before. So taking a step back, the key insight here for students is only 5 minutes of this 30-minute conversation was spent talking about advice for yourself. Actually, 25 minutes of the 30-minute conversation is spent talking about them, their interests, engaging in intellectual conversation. And that's really how you form really stunning relationships as a college student when you reach out to professionals, and how you surprise people in a very cool way. It's doing your research online, really thinking about what trends what trends you gravitate towards, what you find interesting, engaging with a professional about those trends and sharing that enthusiasm. And then when they feel like, okay, this person's really passionate about this field, they're young, they know what they want to do, they seem like someone I want to help. And then in the last 5 minutes, you ask them for actionable advice. That's kind of how a really, really good informational chat would work in practice. And so here's a couple of laundry list additional pro tips. Again, these are all included in the Launchpad course, and no need to take notes on them. Remember, your objective is to build a relationship with this person, not to get a job referral. So sometimes at the last 5 minutes, you can say, oh, I found this internship position at Oracle, and I was going to think of applying. Is there any way that you could flag me to the recruiter, or any suggestions you have to stand out? As you know, it's really tough to stand out these days. Asking something like that is totally fine. But again, that's not the entire point of this conversation. So it's not just to get a job referral. Okay, if you're doing a phone call, make sure you have excellent phone reception. Obviously, I think we're all pros at this given COVID and talking a quiet area. If you do decide to do an in-person meetup, A, be safe. I know it's not on this slide, but B, pick a spot that's close to their office. I think this is more applicable once things open up again, and always offer to pay for their coffee or meal in exchange for their time. I know as college students, it can be somewhat tough to pay for other people's food, but hopefully it's just coffee, and the $3 to $4 gesture is enough to kind of make them feel like, okay, this person appreciates my time. Be positive and upbeat and focus on having an interesting conversation. Don't think of it like as an actual job interview where you're getting super dressed up and you have your resume and a portfolio and you're all, and just think of it as a relaxed conversation, and you've done the research beforehand, so you should feel confident. And then number 5, overstressing this, offer to help in any way possible. For example, you can tell them about recruiting timelines of competing firms. You can help them find candidates for open positions based on other students at NDNU you feel would be a good fit, or just offer to help. It's a thought that counts. So there have been often times when I was recruiting for consulting, where I was like at UCLA, we're on the quarter system and other schools are on the semester system. I've seen a lot of firms actually move up their recruiting deadline to like 2 to 3 weeks ahead of yours. And you might lose out on some candidates because they're applying to those jobs instead of yours. You might want to consider moving up your recruiting timeline. And the recruiter at that firm was like, oh my God, thank you so much for telling that. We had no idea. So there's some really cool ways you can help other people out, even as a student at NDNU, that often most students don't see right away. So again, but broadly speaking, it's the gesture that counts. Okay, so a final note about informational interviews. This really kind of plants the ideal vision for informational interview as a student. You're going to immediately benefit from informational interviews just in the form of acquired knowledge. Like after you talk to 4 to 5 professionals in any given field, you're going to be really, really smart about like, okay, what's a typical day like? What does a job entail? What are the industry trends? What is a career path? What advice they have for me? Like just 4 to 5 people you talk to over a couple of months, it'll make you really, really stellar. But it might take you a couple of months before you start to discover hidden opportunities. For example, someone that you had an informational interview with months ago, might reach back out to you and say, oh, you know what? We actually have this internship opening coming soon. I remember our conversation, you might be a good fit. So it's going to take a couple of months before you see those type of things come up. And informational interviewing, whether you're a freshman or recent graduate, is something you should be doing at least once a month, if not more often. So ideally, for those of you who are freshmen through juniors listening to this call, at the end of every academic year, you should have talked to at least 12 to 15 professionals. And then if you're a senior or recent graduate, you should be doing this weekly, if not more often. And then lastly, think of it like planting seeds. You're engaging with others to build connections and watering them from time to time. Over the long run, you'll enjoy a rich garden of benefits. So this is not something that's going to help you right away. You're going to get a lot of good advice and information, but in terms of job opportunities, in terms of getting exposed to the hidden job market, this is a process that's going to happen over time, and each plant is going to have its different level of success. Some might not even sprout, others will be a huge mentor for your career, as they have been for mine. So just kind of setting expectations about how to think about this stuff. Okay, so a couple of action items, and I'm going to pause for any questions. Number one, reflect on how you used to think about networking. Was it transactional? Was it icky? Who in your network can you reach out to and offer help today? Number two, practice informational interviews. Try meeting up with an older student who has a similar interest as you do career-wise, or even going to a professor office hour virtually, or a professional you already know, like a friend or family contact, and experience what it's like to spend an entire conversation just focused on learning from someone else and active listening, rather than thinking about how can I get this person to get me a job. Number three, after conducting your online research, brainstorm a list of questions you'd like to ask, trends you'd like to discuss, and focus areas for career advice to create a high-level discussion guide for your informational interviews. We actually covered this, exactly how to do this, I think in 2 webinars ago, if not 1 webinar ago, but the Career Launchpad program covers this as well. And then lastly, figure out how you can make informational interview a regular part of your student life. Ideally, you're talking to professionals every week, every month. It's not something you do just when you need a job. And if you can do that, wow, you guys are going to have an incredible network when you graduate, waiting to help you out. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see if we have any questions. Doesn't seem like it.
I don't see any questions in the chat, so.
Great. Okay, let's move on to part 2 then. So we kind of understand the rough framing of what makes a good informational interview. Now let's actually figure out how do we reach out to people and actually make it happen. So what is cold emailing and why is it critical? Cold emailing is a widely popular sales technique. You probably received a couple of cold emails before or cold phone calls. It's basically to establish contact and rapport and sell a new client through unsolicited emails. People are quick to recognize a cold email as spam, but when done right, it can actually intrigue them and help the other person and add value to both the sender and the recipient. And recruiting, cold emailing is the act of sending an email with a small request to a professional you've never professionally met. It can be really powerful and it doesn't have to be sleazy, and we're going to show you how to do that. So cold emailing, if there's one takeaway you get from the entire Career Launchpad program, it's the idea that you can create and discover opportunities just by cold emailing. If there's one thing that you learn to do very, very well, cold emailing and reaching out to people you haven't met before is the best way to spend your time. So as I mentioned before, cold emailing is really important. Your ability to learn about new career paths, test career hypotheses, and unlock new opportunities like landing interviews at intensely competitive companies is largely limited by your network. So again, going back to that statistic of 250 resumes, only 1 offer, if you think your resume or your accomplishments as a student are going to differentiate you, chances are they're not. Just because there's 4 million students every year that graduate that have roughly the same kind of background and qualifications as you do, you're going to need to stand out somehow. And number 2, cold emailing helps to level the playing field by enabling anyone of any background to build an expansive network. All you need is an email account, internet access, and a little bit of know-how, which we'll give you today. So that's another reason why Rohan and I love cold emailing, is because it really levels the playing field. So here's an actual template of what I would send to someone either via email or via LinkedIn InMail. And InMailing is basically just like Instagram DMing on LinkedIn. And so you can see a couple of things here that I want to call your attention to. And in this situation, I'm reaching out to an alumni of UCLA for a coffee chat. So the subject line, I would say career advice for a fellow Bruin, whatever your mascot is, in the blank industry. So in the entertainment industry, in the healthcare industry, in the nonprofit space. So it's an attention grabbing subject line because you're establishing some type of commonality by saying fellow Bruin. So find any kind of commonality with the person that you want to reach out to. If they're alumni, it's easiest for a fellow NDNU grad. But if there's some other commonality, like they're from the same hometown or they went to, I don't know, they're from the same country. If you're an international student, that can be a great way to open up a subject line. Then you get into the message. So you say, hi, whoever your name is. My name is Sahil, and I'm a UCLA student from the class of whatever. I'm currently in the middle of a career transition and came across your profile on LinkedIn or whatever profile platform you found them on. So you're kind of doing a brief personal introduction. And then you're going to talk about why you're reaching out. I noticed that you were a blank major at NDNU, and now you work at blank company as a blank position. And then insert one brief sentence on why you want to work in that industry and call it the most impressive, relevant experience you've had thus far as to why you should be taken seriously. So like I've done a ton of homework on a career path in digital marketing, and I think it's where I want to, enter my career after NDNU. And I saw that you were actually quite accomplished in this field. Then you have the call to action. I was wondering if you are free to grab coffee sometime this or next week or a phone call to chat about your career path and any advice you have for me as a student trying to progress further in the blank industry. And then you can kind of have, more relevant for people meeting in person. Since your office is around blank, I'd be more than happy to meet at a location near you. If you're just doing a phone call, no need to have this. You can maybe include like a Starbucks gift card online for like $5. I do that sometimes and it improves the conversion rate. And then just say, I look forward to connecting, and then kind of provide your information there. So really, when you take a step back, 4 to 5 simple sentences, take this template, guys, and like make it your own. That's all it is, word for word, just do this. And basically the success you're gonna have is as follows. For every 5 emails or in-mails I send out, I typically hear back from one person saying, sure, I'll help you out. So only 10%, 20% of the time. If it's an alumni I'm reaching out to, typically that doubles. So 2 out of every 5 alumni I reach out to will respond and say, sure, I'm happy to help. So most of the time, whether it's alumni or not, you're not going to hear back from people. And that's totally fine, because let's remember, you're cold emailing people. They're not expecting it. Some of them might not be able to help you. Some might not even want to help you. But the point is, you only need to get 1 or 2 out of 5 to help you to really have a meaningful impact on your career. So just setting expectations on how often you should expect this to work. So here are some best practices. Obviously, keep it brief and professional. The best time to send out a cold email or in-mail is Monday afternoon to Thursday evening. Avoid Friday and the weekends and Monday mornings. Turn cold recipients into warm recipients by highlighting similarities, as I mentioned. Alumni from NDNU, people who are part of the same student organization, sports teams, or high schools. You can find all this through LinkedIn. People who grew up in the same city or have similar interests. The more uncommon, the better. If you find out online that they are part of some triathlon or some marathon running team in some part of the country, and you also did that, things like that. The next one is follow up relentlessly. So very rarely are people going to respond to your messages and say no. All they're going to do is ignore you. So maybe follow up 2 or 3 times, space it out over a couple of days. And after your like 3rd or 4th follow up, if they don't say anything, then drop it, move on to the next one. The other tactical thing to remember is, let's say you want to work at Oracle. I would only reach out to one person on the same team at the same time. Like, let's say you wanted to do digital marketing at Oracle. I would not reach out to all 40 people on the digital marketing team at Oracle at the same time, because they talk to each other and you're just going to be wasting everyone's time. You don't need to talk to that many people. So do it one person at a time. And if they don't respond, then move on to the next one. And then lastly, track everything. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of moving pieces here, and it's very easy for you to track everything. And I'll share a tracker that you can download and use yourself in Excel. So as I mentioned before, just summarizing what makes a good cold email: having a catchy subject line, adding a hook by mentioning something that that's something interesting directly. Mention any referrals. So if someone at NDNU or a professor referred you to, you can have that in the subject line, like referral from Professor John Smith. That'll definitely get their attention. Or include the call to action directly in the subject line, like coffee on me for a fellow NDNU alum, something like that, right? Brief personal introduction, we talked about this. Explain why you're reaching out to this person. So I think this is really important. If you remember back to the template, there's like maybe 1 sentence on why you're reaching out to that person specifically. You really want to make sure it's specific to them. So don't just say, oh, you looked very accomplished and you seem cool. It's more so like, oh, I saw that from after NDNU, you entered Oracle and now you work at Facebook. I'm particularly curious how you made that jump to Oracle from NDNU. I'm making this up, but hopefully you can see it's a very specific thing about their profile that you found interesting, and it makes the other person feel like this isn't just a generic emailing template that you used. And then lastly, a call to action, include a broad date of windows of times that you're available, and give an easy way out. So just say, would you be willing to help? Don't say something like, can you get me a job, or can you refer me to this position? They don't know you, they don't owe you anything, right? So just ask for a quick chat, and that's basically it there. So a couple of ways to find professionals to reach out to. Using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool to find and filter professionals. If you're a power user, you can consider temporarily signing up for LinkedIn Premium. You always get 1 month free of LinkedIn Premium. Otherwise, I think it's like $30 a month. And I would say it's worth it for those of you who are actively looking for an internship, because honestly, just maybe 3 to 4 months of LinkedIn Premium, you can find enough people to network with, and you'll find your internship that you're wanting to, and then you can turn it off. And so some of the filters that Rowan and I use, which are free to use, by the way, are filtering by location, by current company that they work for, by past company, by the university they went to. So just imagine LinkedIn, think of it as a place where you have access to everyone's resume in one place, so you can splice and dice by different criteria. And then also you have the ability to reach out to them. It's pretty powerful. So that's LinkedIn. We actually cover this in the Launchpad program, a lot more detail. We'll do a behind the shoulder demo of how we actually do it. So if you're curious about that, you can watch the module in the course about LinkedIn. Mutual connections. So the most successful tactic to get in touch with professionals is to ask mutual friends, family, or connections for an introduction. And then lastly, guessing their email address. You can email people directly if you have LinkedIn Premium. Otherwise, you can use a website called hunter.io to guess and verify their email address. So basically, the way this works is, let's say you wanted to talk to someone at Google and you have their name from LinkedIn or the alumni database. Just by knowing their name and the fact that they work at Google, you can kind of figure out the way that their email is formatted. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, is it s.punamia at Google, or is it Sahil Punamia at Google, or whatever? And so hunter.io tells you how to do that. So it's a good way to guess people's email addresses. And as I mentioned before, keep your search organized with a spreadsheet tracker. So there's a link here that we've linked out in the course as well, where you can download this template. And Rohan and I basically already made fields for you that you can kind of populate when you're reaching out to people, that include like priority, type, industry, context name, position, phone number, LinkedIn profile, if there's a position available that you're interviewing for at that company, and then kind of a status thing. So cool tool that you guys can use as well. And aside from the ways that we talked about, there's several other ways to get someone's attention. Back when people were in the office, and hopefully again soon, a FedEx handwritten card is a great way to get the attention of more senior professionals, especially. I mean, how many people get a handwritten card these days? So when people are back in the office, that's definitely something that you can do and try to really break from the noise. And then number two, introductions. So getting creative with your time at NDNU. An example would be leveraging the brand equity of NDNU. So having someone at NDNU staff, that whether it's the career services or a professor, if they know someone, or if they know someone at the company, reaching out on your behalf, saying, I have a student in my class, she's great and she wants to do something in digital marketing. And I know that, and then the professor would send that email to someone, to the recruiter at Oracle or whatever, and they would take it a lot more seriously because it's coming from a faculty member at NDNU. So that's kind of a cool, creative way that you can kind of break through the noise. We talked about mutual connections, and then LinkedIn clubs and groups and that kind of thing are a great way to get introductions as well. So here's a quick checklist from part 2. You're going to write, send, and track customized emails to target professionals at your, let's say, 20 plus target companies. So come up with a list of 20 companies that you really want to intern or work for someday, and then start to find on LinkedIn professionals to reach out to and start to track and reach out to them. Number 2, ask your career services or alumni association office if they can provide an introduction to someone you want to contact. And the trick with this is not just, is being super specific. So you don't want to say, do you know any alumni that can get me an internship? You want to say something as specific as, I'm actually interested, I saw this job posting for digital marketing at Oracle, and I noticed that there was this specific person who works in digital marketing at Oracle who is also an NDNU alumni. His name's John Smith. Is there any way that you have his contact information or can introduce me to John Smith, because I really want to apply for this position? So the more specific you can get, the easier it is for people to help you. And then over the next 3 weeks, let's call it through the end of this calendar year, update the tracker with any responses you hear, positive or negative, and send weekly follow-up emails to recipients who don't reply. Remember, 2 to 3 times to follow up and then move on to the next person. So that's kind of all we covered. Again, a lot that we went through about networking, and we go through a lot more tactical tips and demonstrations in the actual course. But at this point, as I always say in these webinars, you have 2 options. You can either leave this webinar and try to do everything alone and maybe get frustrated, or you can learn the proven method and tackle each step that we talked about just now from Rohan and I, and enjoy the success that many students have received in terms of multiple offers in their target industry. So we've actually found a way that works. And remember, it takes a student on average 3 to 6 months to find a job. We can get you there in just a couple of weeks based on our technique that we've taught students time and time again. And so that's where the Career Launchpad comes in. It's basically how to get a job or internship in a highly competitive industry as an undergraduate or even graduate in just 42 days. It's over 20 modules of recorded videos, best practices, templates, and behind the shoulder demonstrations. And obviously, since it's online, you can access it anytime and anywhere on any device. It's comprehensive. These are all the modules that we have included in the course. As you can see, it covers everything under the sun. Today's webinar was just a little taste of networking specifically, but you can see there's a lot more detail here and hours of content for you guys to watch. And normally, actually, every day we have students that pay us $400 to access the course because we also sell it directly to students. Luckily, NDNU has made a great deal. So as an NDNU student, you get it 100% free, which is crazy. Now, here's a trick with the problem with offering it for free. Many of you will not start the program right away versus if you pay for it, you're going to use it. So that's my challenge to you, is to not only just sign up for the course, but actually take it, blaze through the modules, reach out to me for help on the Facebook group, and actually get some value so you hit the 2021 year with the ground running. So my challenge to you is to not only sign up for the course that NDNU has made available to you for completely free, that other students are paying $400 for, but then also to finish the modules and get through it so that you can see progress in your career. So to get started, there's going to be a link in the chat, which I'll open up soon enough if I can find it. And basically from there, you'll find the steps to sign up for the course in the link. And if you have any issues, you can send me an email and I'll get you signed up right away. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'll send the link again and we will take questions. And again, this recording will be made available for those of you that want to revisit anything that we talked about.
Thanks, Sahil. I just wanted to bring up the handwritten notes that you had mentioned previously.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It really does, and I can attest to that because in my graduate program on the side, just to get me out of campus and just to clear my mind, I would walk dogs with WAG in my own spare time, just for extra money, but more so for dog therapy. And after every single walk, I would leave a thank you card with a Polaroid picture of their dog. And then shortly after, I started getting a lot of requests to walk their dogs regularly or house sit for them regularly. And I've met a couple of people who work at Facebook or people who work at Google, and they've referred me to other people in their network to watch their dogs. But that's also, a great way to build that relationship with other people, those handwritten notes.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that story. And the crazy part is if you think about it, it really only takes one person to completely change your career trajectory, right? So as much as students get frustrated by me telling them they have to cold outreach to people, it's not like you're a saleswoman or salesman where you have to develop like 100 different people to help you. It's like you really only need one to really work out, but we suggest a couple of dozen across your 4 years at NDNU. But I'm glad that you shared that story because it's absolutely true. And the fact is students are not doing this. And so you really stand out in a weird and cool way by doing this when you're LinkedIn emailing or emailing, let alone sending a handwritten letter. I mean, your response rate for handwritten letters are going to be through the roof if you do it. So something that's worthwhile thinking about, though I will acknowledge in COVID, it might be a bit tricky to make that happen logistically. So maybe when we return back to office and campus, you can use that strategy very aggressively.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Where is the webinar? I know you mentioned the recordings are available for students. Are they available in a certain location, or I don't know if Eric or want to answer that?
They'll be on the career webpage.
Got it. Okay, great. Is that like a live now or?
No, not yet. We're working.
Not yet. Got it. Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to just comment. Thanks, Eric, for the story about the personal cards. I think that's really helpful. I also wanted to make a comment just in regards to when you are connecting and meeting folks, you know, in any capacity, it's always important to keep self in mind. So, you know, picture before, you know, taking these actionable steps, I think it's important for students to recognize their levels of confidence and kind of how comfortable they are with speaking about, you know, their background and their journey and where they're at and what they're really seeking. Because, you know, I know that's something I struggled with as a student, is being confident with self, so that when you do come across those opportunities where you're meeting people and you're connecting, that you're able to eloquently and confidently speak about your journey and kind of where you're at and where you're headed, right? So I know it's going to sound cheesy, but, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror and having those self-reflective moments where you're able to kind of envision yourself taking these actions and talking about, you know, all of those great things and feeling confident about it, I think is also really important, because, you know, when you meet people who could potentially, as Sahil said, you know, change your path and be able to really help you, a lot of the times you find people who are interested in you and they want to know more about your story. So they'll ask you questions. And so I think that, you know, having that ready to go and being confident and able to speak about yourself is also really key in this process. So just give you a little bit something else to think about as you're envisioning yourself kind of taking these actions.
That's so great, Erica. And I can't emphasize enough how much I empathize with students who might feel intimidated by some of what I talked about today, or some of the stuff that's in the Career Launchpad program, and how frustrating it can be to just send out dozens of job applications and never to hear back and think that it's something to do with you. It's not. It's just, it's a system that's broken. And unfortunately, the reality is, and whenever we have Rohan on the call, which we'll have someday, he actually is the product manager for the job seeker platform on LinkedIn. That is his product that he works on. And when you look at the way that big tech companies are solving this problem, unfortunately, helping unemployed college students is not the most fruitful endeavor. And that's why Rohan and I focus the way that we do. It's because there's not a lot of people reaching out and trying to make the situation better. And so these are things that have worked for us. And as you'll see, as Erica pointed out, when you try it for the first time, it's going to feel awkward. You're going to mess up. But if you do it over and over again, because you are all students, you have the right to mess up. You have the right to ask people for help, and it's not going to be an issue at all. And once you do it a couple of times, it's going to be fun for a lot of you. And it's going to be the way that you find your future jobs and internships. By the way, Rohan and I, mainly me, because Rohan's been at the same company, I found all my future jobs through this approach. So my job at Discovery happened over dinner and drinks with the COO of the company and the chief marketing officer. My role at Netflix happened because my boss at Discovery moved to Netflix and she brought me over, and now she's at Apple TV. So who knows where I'll end up. But the point is, I didn't apply for a single job. And the most fun and the highest paying jobs happen because of the internal networks that you build. And obviously that's where some of the discrepancies of the level playing field based on your socioeconomic background can impact students differentially. But by applying this approach, you can find and quickly build a network for yourself. And the fun part becomes when you all graduate and have jobs of your own, you're going to have NDNU students reaching out to you for help, and you can turn back and provide that and pay it forward and really spark this generation of like helping people out. So that's kind of the path that Rohan and I see long-term over the next 10 years really taking shape among college recruiting. So I'll get off my soapbox rant, but we're really, really passionate about this problem. And we've seen it work so many times. Every day we receive email messages from students about how this has worked for them. It's just a matter of putting it into practice. I think Laura had a hand.
I do. I just want to, sorry, I want to chime in one more time. So the tutor.com, it comes up with all the tutoring info, you know, because we're interested in getting you help for your classes. But tutor.com actually has like under the subject category offering, it's career help. In that, you can get resume resume, cover letter, and interview help. So somebody will, you can do it on paper, like Q&A, like these are questions I need to answer. Can you help me like write out my answers? Or you can actually sit on a camera or just even a chat without a video and practice what you want to say. And so that is extremely helpful, because thinking what you're going to say and actually it coming out of your mouth perfectly are two completely different skill sets. I mean, it physically uses different parts of your brain. So to think that you know what you're going to say and then you actually say it right, need to be both practiced. So you can use tutor.com for things like this as well. Thank you.
Awesome, Laura. And is that just literally tutor.com, like how you spell tutor?
It is tutor.com/NDNU, because tutor.com is a commercial company.
Sure.
So that will take you to their paid website. NDNU students have access for free.
Gotcha. Wow. NDNU providing students with everything. So it's on you, everyone. The ball's in your court. You have the Career Launchpad, you have tutor.com. Statistically speaking, only a percentage of you will actually take action, but we know statistically speaking, you're the one that's going to get multiple offers. Ron and I have noticed this really weird phenomenon at every university that we work with across the country. Only a small group of students attract multiple offers each. Kind of weird how that works out, right? And the reason why is because if you have success with one employer, chances are you're going to have success with many. And that's how the same group of students routinely attract the interest of employers. So we want you to be in that group.
Yeah, and I would just like to say kudos to the students who are here in the webinar and who have been consistent in attending these and completing the course. This is really going to help in that process and hopefully benefit you in a lot of great ways. So kudos.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, go ahead, Erica.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there are any other questions or comments.
Yep. Any questions or comments? I was just going to say, we all do this every month. So this is part of a webinar series. So you'll receive the next one. I think we have one scheduled for December, right? Before the end of the year. And so this is part of a series. If you guys enjoyed this one, please bring a friend next time, as we're always trying to expand our audience.
Awesome. So if there aren't any further questions, we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much to Sahil.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. And this recording will be made available whenever the career page goes live. So you'll have that access as well.
Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend, everyone, and Thanksgiving holiday. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.